I forgot to bring lunch to work today, so I ate an entire package of like the foot long Twizzlers. So I'm a little queasy. What's up, guys? Welcome to my happy place. It's raining outside, so we're back in the car. Yay! So when I was 16 years old, I used to work at this day camp, and it was a good job, I guess, in that it was fun and I enjoyed it. It was a bad job in that they did not really pay me. But I made some good friends at this camp, and one of those friends that I made was this kid. We'll call him Bob. And Bob had this talent for mechanics. He could build anything out of any piece of scrap metal. It was godly, borderline mutant power. And one day I see this fellow counselor racing around on what looks to me like a miniature motorcycle, just zipping along like 20 miles an hour along the roads of this camp. And immediately I assume it has to do with Bob. So I run over to Bob and I say, "What is that?" And he says, "It's a pocket rocket," which is something I'd never heard of before, but it's basically a small motorcycle, a teeny tiny motorcycle. And so I ask him if I can have a shot on it. And he says, "Sure, of course." But he tells me you have to do it after camp. And I say, "Sure, that makes sense." After camp, I come over to him and he hands me the keys to the pocket rocket, and I get on the pocket rocket and I start zipping along, and I'm hunched over. It's small. It's like, I want to be clear about how small these things are. They're like maybe 2.5 feet long, like maybe 3 feet long, and then like a 2 feet tall. They're really small. Like, they're really, really tiny, but they go fast. They're pocket rockets. So I'm zipping along on this tiny little cruiser, and everything's going fine. Everything's going great. The shock absorbers weren't so great, because I guess he built it out of scrap, so, you know, like, I can't, like, blame the guy. The shock absorbers weren't so great, so I was beginning to feel numb in my butt. Just vibrating like crazy. So I set up, I'm holding the gas, and I'm saying, okay, I'm gonna slow down, I'm gonna release, and I'm gonna hit the brake like you're supposed to do, and then I will pull over to that tree stump over there, and I will leave the pocket rocket there. I will turn it off, and then I will let my butt reset itself, and then I will get back on the pocket rocket. Now, before I explain the rest of this story, I want to preface this with, this is way before I learned how to drive, so I wasn't really prepared to be driving this thing. I was kind of just doing it. When I went to stop, I'm holding on. This is me holding the handle. When I went to stop, though the plan had been solid, in practice, when I was going to grab the brake, I also revved the engine, and in revving the engine, I negated the brake, came into the stump that I wanted to pull over at full speed, and smashed directly into it. The pocket rocket snaps in two. Like, the whole front axle of it just snaps, metal tears off. Because I hit it at like solid 20 miles an hour at least. I flip over the handlebars into a tree, and the back half of the motorcycle lands between my legs. Now, this is important, and I'll get to it in a second. I'm in pain, so I get up slowly, pulling my leg from under the wreckage and seeing what looks like just the removal of all the skin on my leg. Or not all the skin, but like a solid 4 square inches of my leg are just, there's no skin there. And it didn't really feel good. So I limp back to Bob and I tell Bob, I kind of broke your pocket rocket. He said, "Oh, well, okay. I was going to sell that to somebody, and they'd already paid me." Which is something you'd think he would have mentioned before he let me drive the damn thing, because if I'd known the thing was bought already, I would never have touched it, because I break everything I touched. It would just have never happened. I would never have done it. But so that's a separate story. I actually kind of ended up getting involved in the mafia a little bit because of that. But getting back to my story, so I have this leg that is limpy because of pain, and I'm all banged up because I smashed myself into a tree. I don't want to call my mom because I don't want to tell her that I got on a pocket rocket and crashed it, and now I owe this guy $400, which it was $400, by the way, which is pretty much as much as I made that summer. I want to be clear. But so I decide I'm going to walk home. I'm not going to get picked up by my mom. I'm going to walk home. And it was like a solid hour walk, but I'm limping. I arrive at my house and I come in the front door, and my mother yells down from the kitchen, "Hey, Zach, are you what's going on?" And I say, "Nothing much. I'm going to go to the bathroom." And I move as fast as my little limpy leg will take me to the bathroom, and I slam the door shut. And so I start to do the little first aid that I know, because I see a big old scraped up leg, and I'm putting Neosporin on it, and I'm trying to like bandage it up a little bit. Just as I'm doing that, my sister walks in, and my sister couldn't have been more than, God bless her, she was probably like 12 years old. And she walks in, and she sees her older brother patching up his leg, and it probably looked worse to her than it did to me, because her face was an expression of just pure horror. Just, and I go, shh, just don't tell her. Just don't tell Mom. Just don't. And she goes, okay. And she walks out. And in retrospect, it probably would have been better if she had told my mom, because I bandaged it up. I tried to go about the rest of my night just pretending like I didn't have a limp on my leg and that everything was fine. And I went to bed thinking that everything was all fine and dandy and everything was taken care of, and that I would pay the mafia man his $400 in the morning. I woke up the next morning with an 104-degree fever that rose to, I think, 105 at its peak. And I was beyond sick. And then the next day I was okay. The next day I was fine. And we didn't really know what had happened, but my leg was starting to heal up and I felt like pretty okay. Looking back on it, a few months later, I realized that I had not scraped up my leg. The engine had burnt off all the skin on my leg. Because remember, the engine had fallen on my leg and had pinned my leg down. It was a small engine, but an engine nonetheless, and therefore it had burned my leg, like, severely. And one of the symptoms of a 2nd/3rd degree burn is a fever, a real fever. Especially if said 2nd or 3rd degree burn is not treated properly, which I did exactly the opposite of what you're supposed to do for a burn. You're not supposed to cover it in Neosporin. You're not supposed to soak it in hydrogen peroxide. You're not supposed to do any of those things. But I hadn't recognized it as a burn because I was 16 years old and trying to hide something from my mom. Anyway, so my leg healed up pretty okay and kind of scarred up a lot. So I was kind of self-conscious about wearing shorts for a few years after that because of that and like my obscenely hairy legs. But anyways, that's a story about why I'll probably never own a motorcycle, because I'll be too scared about like crashing into a stump and burning my leg off. If you like this video, please like. If you want to comment on this video, please do so. Share this video, and most importantly, please subscribe. I come out with videos every Tuesday, Thursday, and then there's a song Sunday that happens every Sunday, usually, probably, sometimes, hopefully, more often than not. From my happy place, I'm Zach. Now go away.